Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to be given to bring in a bill to require the Secretary of State to promote and secure youth services and provision of the requisite standard, to impose a duty on local authorities to provide youth services and establish youth service partnerships with youth participation and, of course, for other connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, there is no question youth services improve the life chances of individual young people, taking them beyond the constraints of the contours of their neighbourhoods and offers them new experiences in everything from the arts to outdoor adventures. Young people gain from these experiences. Youth work supports but doesn't replace formal education. It enhances the readiness for learning in the classroom and learning in life. But not only does it help young people in the classroom, it helps them develop skills and attitudes needed for the employment the Prime Minister was so boastful about, and of course for general adult life. By giving the young people a chance of how to learn to relate better with each other and to relate to different adults in a safe and challenging environment, they are enhanced, our communities are enhanced. Yet despite all of this, in the 2016 study, it showed that 600 youth centres had closed around the country. 3,500 youth workers have lost their jobs, meaning that a total of 140,000 places for young people have been lost up and down our country. Keep in mind, of course, that these figures are now 2 years old and cuts have only continued. Research done by the House of Commons Library this year show what cuts have meant in terms of funding. In 2010, we spent £1.2 billion on youth work, youth services and related youth activity. And last year, this country, we spent £358 million. That is a 68% cash terms cut. I don't know what service or provision would survive this, and the youth sector certainly hasn't. Many parts of our country now have no youth service at all. Young people simply seek to have somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to speak to. This is the simplest of mottos, but it sums up simply what youth work is about. Youth work is ultimately able to prevent young people from undertaking harmful behaviour and provide them with advice so they can make informed decisions. So stark is this being felt that young people aged between 16 and 24 are now the highest demographic age group to feel lonely, with 1 in 10 say they always or often feel lonely. This is a disgrace. And when young people do reach out for help, in my city alone, they face 12 months to see a professional while their mental health continues to spiral. But it is not just mental health, it is crime. Because young people devoid of positive influences can fall foul of negative ones. The Office of National Statistics has found knife crime has increased in our country by 22% in a year. And we have heard too how the youth offending budgets are being cut by the Ministry of Justice in real terms this year. And so the misery goes on. Mr. Speaker, our news media and some of us in this chamber can often characterise young people as the problem. If you think about the language used to describe some of the problems facing young people, it is constant reinforcement of what is happening, youth gangs, youth offender. And the empowerment of young people as actors of positive change is constantly diminished in the narrative, that they are a problem to be contained or to be ignored or to be dealt with. Well, Mr. Speaker, I think we are the problem. Youth work has the positive impact on young people's lives, and what have we done? We've cut and cut and cut again, and then we blame the young people when things fall apart. Our young people are not the problem. It is our inability to support them and listen to them that is. Mr. Speaker, I also say proudly that I worked in my local youth service for many years. I worked at the National Youth Agency. I'm proud to say I also was a voluntary group leader in my local youth group, the Woodcraft Folk, and its national chair. And of course, before that, I was a young person involved in the Youth Parliament and the British Youth Council. Thank you. These three roles, however, are three distinct roles: young person, voluntary youth leader, and professional youth worker. They are distinct, but so often these roles are confused. In terms of COTS, voluntary youth organisations are now having to step in to professional statutory youth services with volunteers overworked and frankly underqualified for technical detail. And young people have to organise their own activities without the previous support of the voluntary youth leaders who are so busy picking up the pieces. My bill seeks to clarify the position, along with guidelines, following the guidelines set out by the Council of Europe, and give registered youth workers a footing in law. Most parents and members of the public will be surprised that youth worker has no professional standards, as there are, say, with teachers, and anyone can profess to be a youth worker. My bill seeks to readdress that, while celebrating, of course, the important role of voluntary youth leaders in our voluntary youth sector. Youth workers are all too often dismissed, and with long hours they work in difficult circumstances and often without a thank you. And for my part, I would like to place on the record my sincere thank you to youth workers who have come to Parliament today to help lobby for this bill and for the importance of youth work generally. I say thank you for staying back late and having a chat with that young person going through crisis. Thank you for organising those weekends, trips, or those sports activities. I say thank you for applying for those grants to give your young people the opportunities they would have never had. Their work is important, and that's why they need support. But their support needs resource. And some may say councils have the power already to provide resources and choose to fund youth services. But we know in times of tight budget, councils up and down the country are unable to spend what they would like and focus only on statutory provision. And yes, the Education Inspections Act of 2006 places a duty on local authorities to secure access to provision. But there is no definitions in that act of what access of provision would look like, and the government and councils have largely ignored it. There is little guidance on securing access. There is no requirement to develop plans or monitor the sufficiency of these services. There is no redress if councils fail this duty, and importantly, there is no funding to make sure this happens. My bill rectifies this. It requires each local authority to establish a youth services board with young people, parents, professionals and counsellors, just like a school governing body, that will assess and plan the provision in that area. My bill requires these plans to be submitted to the Secretary of State to nominate a body to review these plans. Many bodies exist, Mr. Speaker. The National Youth Agency, for example, hosts much of the standard settings and the joint negotiating bodies for youth work already. But since 2011, it has received no government funding, and it has had no statutory underpinning for the work that it does. So bad has the situation got that the APPG for Youth Affairs, which I chair, is launching an inquiry into youth services across the country, seeking out good examples and also challenges, and we've asked MPs to join us, and we hope to develop a parliamentary scheme for MPs to visit youth clubs and youth centres around the country during recess. And whilst this cross-party work goes on separately to the bill, I hope that it too will raise the plight of youth services in our country. It was the UK that first established clubs like the YMCA and Scouts and pioneered a voluntary youth work sector. It was the UK, and first in Coventry and then councils around the country, that established municipal youth clubs and showed the world how youth services could be run. But these gains have all been whittled away, and they have been swept away along with the futures of our young people, and this is to our shame. So, Mr. Speaker, a country where every young person has somewhere to go, someone to speak to and something to do is surely not too much